Welcome, everybody, to the Generation Lyme podcast. My name is Jesse Ruben. I'm on the board of Generation Lyme, and I am joined today by two of my fellow board members, Brooke Stoddard and Jennifer Hoffmann, as well as one of our very awesome hosts, Rhisa Parera. Welcome, everybody. How we doing?
Hey.
Hello.
Good.
We here at Generation Lyme are starting a new series where every month we are going to record a podcast based on the monthly topic. Due to some health issues and scheduling things, this one is a little late. Last month's topic was actually support. Sorry, not sorry, but we'll try and be more on time in the future. But we just thought support was such a great topic. We wanted to talk more about it, and we just thought it would be a great opportunity to connect with each other, bring in special guests, and sort of dive into these topics because a lot of people ask us how and why we choose our monthly topics. So this conversation is going to be all about support, what it means, what happens, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like, all that kind of stuff. And if you like this conversation, be sure to follow us, rate this podcast, leave us a review or a comment. All that stuff really helps spread the word. Or please share it with other people in your lives who you think would enjoy it. So first up is a pretty open-ended question, and you guys can be as specific or as vague as you want, but what does support mean to you?
It's weird. I'm like, what is the definition of support?
I actually just put it in on my computer's dictionary because in preparation for this podcast, I prepared a little document of the different types of support, and it doesn't mean that it means that exact thing to each one of us, but there are so many ways to support a person, and there's so many different types that it's really hard to answer.
Right.
The types, yeah.
People are like, I didn't feel supported by you, right? But there's like a million ways you can.
Yeah.
So yeah, I know.
So why don't I? So there are 5 types that I found from a Harvard blog, I think, a Harvard Health blog.
Ooh,
and it was
Harvard.
Well, try to get good sources, right?
Right.
So emotional support, kind of self-explanatory. An example would be just accepting someone, calming someone, being there. Informational support is another example. So that's the second one. Providing resources of it, knowledge-based resources. Tangible support is the third, like a goods or services. And the example in this blog was, can I have a cup of sugar? And giving that person a cup of sugar may not be a common question in our community, but that was it. It's a good example. And then the fourth was self-esteem or affirmational support, which is, I like the way it was described, and I'll just read it. It says, this occurs when we are engaged in something where we feel respected. And maybe this is a role at work you have, volunteering, or a feeling you get from your responsibilities in your family. And then the fifth was belonging support. And that's something that you get through a feeling of connection and community.
That sounds like why we started Generation Lyme.
Yeah, I think we've come. The Gen Lyme. I think we strive pretty hard for the emotional support, belonging support, and as much as possible, of course, the self-esteem and affirmational support. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say, are there any of those that like stand out to you guys as the most important or the most difficult to get or the most complicated?
I feel like the most complicated to get from people who don't have Lyme is emotional support. Just because, like, even though people are trying, it's just, I mean, we all know it's hard for them to understand when they're not going through it, especially because like things change so much with Lyme disease. It's like one day it's one thing and then the next day it's another. And I can imagine like being on the outside of that. It's like, okay, I'm not sure what to do for you right now. It's not like just like one track. There's so many pieces to it. I feel like that's the hardest part for people outside. That's why like these calls are good, because we all know what each other is talking about.
Totally.
So you get that emotional support through the belonging support.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Cool.
This is such an interesting discussion because support is vague enough of a term that I think we've decided there are many types of support. And my definition of support would be pretty generalized too. But being a part of Generation Lyme, the first thing I think of when I think of support is a Lyme disease patient is looking for support from other people in that person's life. So potentially a partner, parent, neighbor, coworker, friend, supporter, caregiver. That's just where my mind goes. And the way that those types of people, I think, can support someone with Lyme, again, very generalized, is just to like validate the patient's experience and accept it as authentic. And then the action for support can be, as Rhisa said, providing emotional support, could be physical, like bringing a Lyme disease patient, maybe not a cup of sugar, but like a gluten-free piece of bread or something. Yeah. And so there's so many ways that Lyme disease patients can be supported by members of their, like family or community. And that's why it's so hard to define it like in one particular type of action.
I think the tangible support is maybe just like reading these definitions might be the most complicated for caregivers, because like especially obviously we know a lot of patients have a lack of support, and that can be devastating, and I think we've all dealt with that in some ways. But even when you have someone who wants to help, the tangible things that they can do can sometimes be really hard to define. I mean, I know for me, when I was sick, like I wanted to like just have people like drop off food and then go away and not ask me any questions or talk to me. I also desperately needed money and like didn't know how to do that. Like the first thing I thought of when we were talking about tangible support is like, oh, these people need money. Like that is like what tangible support looks like for chronically ill people who are dealing with crazy medical bills. But that gets uncomfortable and awkward, and it's hard to ask for things like that when you're not feeling well. And yeah, I don't know. But it's also amazing how important each one of those things are, for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, my mom helps me so much financially with this. I always tell people, like, I'm pretty sure I'd be bedbound like 24/7 if it wasn't for her helping me out financially, because these bills, they be coming in fast. You're like, okay, whoa, this is a lot of money.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that these things stack. So you end up needing all of them. It's like when you start lacking in one area of support, you end up kind of needing more. And then you end up, it's kind of hard for the people in your life to give. It's hard to explain, but from the potential supporters side, especially in the case of Lyme, I think it's hard to provide all of them, and then the needs stack on themselves and it becomes this overwhelming thing that's hard to deliver on. And then it's a very painful experience for the person trying to support, or where their support is expected from, and then the person who needs the support experiences a lot of pain. So for example, take something simple like informational support. If the facts about Lyme are not agreed upon and publicized well, then the average person might, as we know, have trouble validating the experiences of the patients they know, because whatever they're Googling or whatever might not match up to what the person in their life is telling them about their disease. So then there's like a dissonance between what they're being told by the person they know and what they're seeing from research that they're supposed to that they feel they're supposed to accept as being legitimate. So then they're less inclined to give that affirmational support and that emotional support. And then that kind of knocks down that support, that belonging support, because then people don't feel connected anymore with these relationships get a fracture. And then because of that, inevitably there's some kind of break in a tangible support, because there's some kind of, I mean, we always hear about there's some breakdown when there's all these other breakdowns of maybe that person isn't as reliable to give a ride to the doctor, or to provide money for, say it's a disease that they don't believe can be chronic or something like that. And we see that happen a lot in our community. And I think that's just worth mentioning. So the areas of repair, we need to kind of stack that back up on our end as well.
I think the belonging one for me might be the biggest one, just because the isolation and loneliness of like, I'm going through something no one else is going through, and how hard that is to deal with. Just personally, like the first time I met a group of Lyme patients that were like my age and like looked like me and talked like me and sounded like me, and they all believed me and all understood what I was going through, that was like a huge moment in my mental health recovery when I was really, really sick, you know? So that one really stood out too. Which brings us, what a great segue to the next question, which I'm really interested in, which is, how have you guys received support? What were the things that people said and did for you, or didn't do, that really made a difference for you? Maybe something like that you got from someone else that you didn't even know that you needed until you got it. What are like some of the positive aspects of support that you guys have gotten? And then we'll focus on the other stuff.
Sure.
I mean,
I'm happy to go first here. Rhisa already mentioned her mom, so I've got to mention my mom, but it sounds like our moms are a big part of these stories. And I'll make mine rather quick. But when I contracted Lyme disease and babesiosis, that was in 2010, so 12 years ago. And I think 1 or 2 years after that, I remember having this like summer job, and I was really struggling with an array of symptoms. I didn't know that I had Lyme disease until a few years later. And the way that my mom supported me is that every day after work, instead of taking the subway home, which would have been less expensive, I took a taxi home from work, which was more expensive, but necessary because I was so exhausted just from the fatigue of Lyme disease. And during those taxi rides, I would call my mom, and she would literally just listen to me. She would let me vent. She would let me talk about my day. She would listen to what symptoms I was struggling with, whether that was fatigue or brain fog or, something else. And through that experience, I really think I appreciated how she was there for me just as a listener. She didn't try to solve my problem. She didn't give me medical advice, but she just was there to listen. And I've taken that experience and tried to give it back in so many ways, just by listening to Lyme disease patients in our Gen Lyme meetups, or other people with other medical problems that I meet in my own life. And I think just like being quiet and simply listening to what someone is going through is a great way to support those people, as my mom did for me many, many years ago.
wow. I know, I'm like, do I have one to compare?
That's beautiful. Love that.
My mom did not do that, in case you were wondering if everyone's mom's. My mom did the best she could, and it didn't look anything like that at all. So it's not a competition. Way to go, Brooke's mom, though. High five for Brooke's mom.
I feel, well, also for me, like it had built up since I was a child. So it had been so confusing for like more than 20 years, and we didn't know what was going on. So like when I got older and went to the doctor alone, like I would literally, my mom's like, call me when you come out, like all the time. Like she knew every appointment. She'd be like, call me when you get out. And I would just have no answer, no answer, no answer. And I'm like, what is happening here? And then when I was diagnosed, like she took me to a naturopath. She was like, we're just any option. She was like, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that, we're gonna do that. Don't worry about the money. Um, and then I still wasn't getting better. And I was like, I think I need like an LMD. And she's like, just go, just go. And there was one in Jersey and it was like $1,500. And I was like, oh my God, that's so expensive. And then I ended up going to GemSec in DC. And it's crazy because at that time I was still married and my husband like had completely like discarded me pretty much at that point. And I remember that day I was so sick. I was like bent over in pain and I couldn't eat a thing. Like literally nothing would stay down. And one of my friends was like, don't worry about it, I got you. And he comes from Brooklyn to Jersey to pick me up with his 4-year-old daughter. He's like, I have my daughter, I'm sorry, like she has to come. And I'm like, dude, I don't care if like your whole family has to come. I just need to get there. And I cannot get on the train right now. I was like, I can't even get to Penn Station right now. And he drove me all the way to DC with me like nauseous in the car. And literally I was in the bathroom in the hotel the whole night. And I didn't sleep. He didn't even sleep either. He was just up with me like talking and just hearing me speak about it because he's known me since like more than 10 years. So he's seen like how it progressed for me. And then he literally waited around during my appointment and then drove me back home. Like it was just like, it was just a lot. I'm like, wow, like that's like a friend. And one who didn't really understand what was going on either. I mean, I didn't really understand too, but he was just like, whatever, dude, like you're suffering. So I'm gonna do what I have to do for you.
Are you still
Oh,
friends with that person?
he's in the movie.
Oh, perfect. Great.
He was at the premiere. He's like the guy that plays my dad.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
I love this guy. What an amazing friend. What like especially not knowing what's going on with you. Just like, yeah, what do you need? I'm bringing my kid. Let's have an adventure.
Yeah.
You know, like that's so great.
He literally texted me like a few weeks ago because he works outside, doing like working with like power lines and stuff. And he's like, my coworker had 2 ticks on him. He's like completely like devastated because of me. So he just like he freaks out. He completely freaks out.
That's good. He's acting appropriately to what
Yeah.
to that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
I was like, everybody stay calm.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I go outside and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Ah.
Freak out a little bit. It's hard. I mean, there are quite a few people who after their diagnosis and or whatever have a hard time even being on the pavement outside, inching toward,
Oh, I didn't touch a lawn for years.
No, me neither.
Or I tried not to for years.
I mean, I've definitely been made fun of and kind of made a joke about just kind of hopping across a grassy patch to get to the next piece of concrete, but it is what it is, in long pants and light colored shoes and stuff because I gotta see. But I'm like, I don't care what you think. God, just
my response to that is always, if you knew what I knew, you'd be doing what I'm doing.
Same. Shut up.
I don't
hop along or something.
I'm trying to think if I had anybody like be a superhero like that. I mean, my now wife eventually got on board, although that was really difficult. But for me, the biggest, like the first thing I think about with support was like this group of friends I had that I met through my Jennifer's back. I met this really great group of young people through my doctor's office, and we were each other's lifelines for like a couple years. We would get together like once a week and have these like epic meals where we would just talk about our treatment and complain to each other and be honest with each other. And I felt like with everybody, I was either at the doctor or in my apartment or around people that thought I was crazy, or I was with those people. And when I was with them, it was like I could finally breathe a little bit. And we really saved each other, like I don't think you can navigate this alone. I just really don't. And we're not as close now as we used to be. We're also not as sick as we used to be, which is really amazing to see them like go out into their lives and do things and be busy in a way that was unimaginable when we were at our worst. But yeah, I mean, I think having support is one of the most important things you can have when you're a Lyme disease patient.
Yeah, for sure.
I
Like
feel
there's no way
like
to navigate this by yourself.
no.
Impossible. Like really impossible.
And I feel like to your point, Rhisa, what you said earlier, I have to absolutely shout out my parents because of the support that they've given me throughout the years. And it's been a topic that's been tough because it's evolved. The type of their understanding of what's gone on, but and my understanding of how supportive they really are, how supportive they intend to be, because we're not always, it's hard to be on the same page when you feel how you feel, but don't necessarily look how you feel. You don't have a diagnosis yet. It's confusing. And it's like a progressive illness since childhood. Everybody may have the best of intentions and do their best, but it still might end up in, a difficult situation from time to time. But they have always wanted me to find answers and help me find and go to the doctor, and like I too would be in bed or not have a functioning brain and not speaking in sentences if not for their help, and certainly financial support and other types of support as well. And especially in the past, let's say 2 years, longer, but definitely in 2 years, because I spent a lot of time with them in the past couple of years. I've really noticed, it's become very apparent to me how much they've been willing to learn and grow. And that's been kind of humbling and like a learning experience for me too, because I either didn't see it before, or it wasn't as apparent to me, or I wasn't like ready or able to notice that they wanted to. And also I was also probably just not as in command of what was going on with me. I didn't have my diagnosis. I had no idea what might help me and what other kind of support could be out there. Like I didn't have a Gen Lyme. I didn't have other Lyme friends before the past couple of years. And that makes a huge difference. So if I had, for example, family that wasn't supporting me every possible way in all of the ways that I needed it, it felt more devastating than it would now. And also they have since evolved and been eager to see how things change and willing to listen. So like what Brooke said, and give rides, things like that. It's not easy. Nobody expects to be in the position where their child is potentially always going to need some kind of extra help or time, physical accommodations and stuff like that. But I guess I if you had asked me this a couple of years ago, I would have had a very different answer. But now I think it's kind of been a good experience for me too, even.
Yeah. Well, that was another great segue to the question I want to ask, which is, I want to change it a little bit. How has all of your experiences with your own health, how has that changed? And I know that Brooke mentioned that he tries to listen as best he can, and I think we all do that. But how has your health experience changed the way you give people support, or just the way you look at giving people support?
I feel like I'm way more understanding than I used to be. And that goes for like every aspect of my life now. Because I didn't realize like how ableist I was until I was really, really sick. And I don't know, I was like, wow, I'm on the other side of this one now. Like, damn, I used to be that person that was like, oh, just do this, this, or this. And I hate even thinking about that because I'm like, wow, I was really that person. And sometimes I, not that I give them a pass for being like that, but I'm like, man, even I was like that. Even when I was looking for answers, I was like that because I just kept pushing and pushing, which is terrible that we do that. But yeah, I just feel like I've just learned to be more patient and understanding with people, certain people. Because there are some people who's like, oh. But yeah, for the most part, I feel like I just try to be a little bit more patient with people.
I remember when I was really sick and couldn't like have a normal thought and someone was like, "But think of how like empathetic you are now." And I was like, "I was a pretty empathetic person before all this happened. I didn't need this. I didn't need to deal with this." It was not the
Oh
thing
man,
to say to me at the time,
I
but
feel like if they were being particularly empathetic at the time, they would not have said that to you.
I
Just
don't
gotta
even-
say
I don't even remember who it was, but I just remember thinking like that was not what I needed.
It's
It
kind of
How
like
wasn't.
strong you are now.
I hate
Yeah,
when
right.
people are like, "Oh, you just have to be like a nice person." I'm like, bro, that's like the bare minimum. Everybody's supposed to be a nice person. Like you don't get brownie points for being a nice person. Like that's
Welcome
like
to
rule number
America.
one.
Yeah. We get brownie points for doing the bare minimum.
God, I don't even remember how we got here.
I did this. I have to cop to the same thing. I was very similar, Risa. Like I don't know if in all the same ways, but I definitely had some kind of ableist stuff in me that it was just super steeped in denial as well. Because it's like
Yep.
I'm evaluating everybody else based on how I wish to be. Now it's not really how I am, but how I wish to be. And and even more than that, one thing I will that always sticks out when I get asked this question or think about this question is I always would say, okay, at least I have my brain, at least I have my memory. And I had this friend who told me that she had a really terrible memory, like a terrible short-term memory. And I just remember this one time, I would be like, why don't you remember? You don't know this? And I was just it was about like a very popular movie or something. And I didn't realize how it was making her feel terrible because it was a, kind of movie that Star Wars or something that like everybody, and it really hurt her feelings. And I felt really bad about that. And then a couple of years and not later, but I couldn't identify with the experience. And then a couple of years later, I had my own brain injury and I remembered almost nothing about anything. And I was like, karma, but also I get it now, like I couldn't, yeah, I mean, just being a little bit, jumping a little less to judgment, being more mindful of that. I would say probably understanding and all that stuff, and patient. Even I don't think anyone would ever describe me as being particularly patient, but I think long term I've learned to be quite patient and not giving unsolicited advice.
Good one.
Yeah.
That's
'Cause
so
that-
hard.
That
That's so
I
hard.
try. I'll say I try because I think I grew up with a lot of that and it became a huge pet peeve, which I think most of us have experienced. And so I had to like make a conscious effort to not do that.
Yeah.
And now it's not habit. It's yeah, stuff like that.
dude, unsolicited advice. Oh gosh.
I think I was always the one. I always wanted to like talk about feelings and stuff. So when I was growing up, my friends would like come to me with their problems, and I always really loved it. But now because and I'm sure all of us have dealt with this, like the sick people in our lives or friends of friends of friends who are sick, they all get sent our way. But I take those conversations way more seriously now because I know it's like literally life and death. Like when you're talking to a sick person who either doesn't know what's wrong with them or just got diagnosed, like I feel like I have to like put a superhero cape on because somebody did that to me and literally like saved my life. So it's not just talking through like, issues that teenagers are having with their parents, which is very valid. But when you're talking about like health and mental health and well-being, I just know now how serious that is and how serious that can be. So I try and take it way more seriously now than I think I did when I was a lot younger. And I give tons of unsolicited advice, like tons.
Well, if people are coming to you like that, that's probably
yeah,
not
I mean,
unsolicited.
Yeah.
if it's from other Lyme patients, like I'm kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But when it's people outside, I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. I don't care how much you've read or whatever. I'm like, no.
You back right off. Okay.
Right. But I feel like what Jesse just said, that can become really exhausting too at times for us.
Yeah.
And sometimes I have to put like a stop. I'm like, okay, that's all I can do for today. Like I can't give you any more. Cause sometimes like people get so just like, oh my God, someone gets it. And then it's just it's a lot to deal with sometimes, especially when it keeps coming to you. It's like, well, okay, hold on. I'm not even 100%. Like I can't today, or yeah. I feel like there always has to be like a balance with that. Because I was trying to do that so much in the beginning, like especially because I got a lot of attention being like, oh my God, you're like the first like Black/Hispanic person I've literally ever seen with Lyme disease. And it was like, they were just like all coming my way. And I was like, whoa, this is great, but I need a second.
Yeah.
That's like self-support though, which I think goes hand in, I mean, it's just as important as, what we give to others, giving to ourselves.
Because if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't
help other people.
Yeah.
Right. And my answer to that about how my self-support has changed would probably have a lot to do with the development of boundaries, kind of like that, because first you have to figure out what they are, like what your needs are. So some exploration of what your needs might be, and then learning how to express them in a healthy way. But yeah, and just figuring out how to arrange your life in a way that so you're not exhausted by everything, and while you're trying to do your best. So sometimes that might mean, for example, not hosting meetups, but doing other things, or hosting tons of meetups.
Jennifer gets sensitive that she doesn't host meetups. Meanwhile, we've said a million times,
not anymore.
Without her, Generation Lyme would crumble to the ground. So
I mean, I feel like for you guys, like even starting this whole even starting Generation Lyme means you're like super empathetic people. So I feel like you would always just want to be there for everyone, right? So it's like you kind of have to be like, okay, step back today. That's what I mean. I'm just
no, that's sometimes
this for honestly for free, like that's huge on your part. So I mean, there's like nothing for free, right? In terms of support, in terms of anything for us. So I don't know. That was just a shout out for you guys.
Well, you too, you're on the team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
we.
Oh yeah,
it's us. But thank you, and you too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, me too.
What were you gonna say, Brooke?
I was gonna say, as Jennifer mentioned, striking that balance between self-care and wanting to support other people is hard. And the four of us, I think, are empathetic. Rhisa, as you mentioned, yourself included, and we all want to help Lyme patients, but it is a challenge. We have to devote some energy to supporting our own selves and making sure that we're healthy enough to do all the other cool things we want to do in life, and then we extend or use some energy to help Lyme patients when we can. Speaking of balance has been a topic before. We've discussed it for an entire month at meetups, and it's such a relevant topic because I think naturally, for the four of us who've gone through this really difficult experience with Lyme, we have learned something from that, and we want to help other people. And we often want to help them so much that we're at risk of overextending ourselves doing that. So always a tricky balance, but I think all four of us work hard to get that balance right and do the best we can.
Yeah. So I really want to get to everything, and whenever we do these, because I just love talking to all of you guys, and I want to make sure we get to everything. And of course, we've already gone over where we should be by now, but I'm going to pass it over. I know, who cares? I want to pass it over to Jennifer so that she and Rhisa can have a conversation, because I think it's really important. And then after that, we'll start to wrap it up. So I'm going to turn it over to you two, and yeah.
So we were going to talk about, I thought we were all four going to talk about how
we can. I just figured it would be, it's better if you guys at least start, and then Brooke and I can jump in.
Got it. So the next question, thank you, Jesse. The next question is going to be, where did we feel, we as a group or individuals feel we needed support but didn't get it recently? And that's a big question. It could be toward us as individuals, because there's a lot coming through. We've got our experience as individual patients and support we may or may not get from other individuals or from groups or from, institutions that we have to deal with, like the medical community or groups that represent us and all kinds of stuff like that. And so we can work on we can explore all this one-to-one topics like we have for the past however long we've been speaking, which is really valuable. But I think it's worth, we all, I guess, think it's worth talking about how, broadening the conversation a little bit and talking about how we can kind of better achieve a stronger support system with organizations and bigger groups and stuff like that. So we're going to start the question of, in recent days or months, where did you feel you needed support but didn't get it? And that question first goes to Rhisa.
Well, I guess we're talking about a specific event that, yeah, so I feel like this happens. Well, okay, I'm going to start from the beginning. I'll try to make it quick. When I first was diagnosed, I pretty much it was weird. I revamped my whole IG to be just about Lyme disease, because I had joined one of those Facebook support groups and I didn't see anyone Black. And I was like, wait a minute, it's happening. I was like, I'm so confused. There's 20,000 people here. And I even was like, are there any brown or Black people here? I just want some advice from someone who looks like me. It wasn't that I was trying to be no, we're not the same, but I just wanted to hear their experience. And literally it was one person who responded, and I'm this is weird. So I figured IG would be an easier place to find people because of hashtags and all that stuff. And then I did the Tick Bootcamp podcast, and that's how I found other people of color. But then that whole podcast, the comments on that podcast were wild. So that's when I was like, wait a minute, hold on.
Oh God.
Okay, now then I wanted to kind of pull back from the community, because I was like,
can you be specific about what do you mean about the comments? Just because
they were super racist. It was, a couple of the comments were just she doesn't have Lyme disease because Black people live in the projects and they don't live in houses and they don't have enough money to travel. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, what? I was like, first of all, I grew up in Staten Island. I went camping. I've been to different countries. What does this in any way? Even if I did live in public housing, what do you think? I don't go outside.
I got a new tick bite in Manhattan in 2020.
Right. I'm
on the concrete. So
yeah, it was just a lot.
And no one said anything about that. Nobody said anything about that to me. So
yeah, it was just, I was like, wait, what's happening here?
Yeah.
They were super cool about responding to that. I didn't have to deal with it. But then on the other hand, then I did a lot of podcasts and interviews, and someone had told me I feel like you're becoming the token Black girl for this, and you're using a lot of your energy for free. And I was like, yeah, I'm kind of feeling like that now too, because it was like a load of like people contacting me, and I'm like, what? This is so like I felt like I was like a celebrity at one point. And then I was like, I'm not gonna do this anymore. Not for free, that's for sure. Like,
Well, no,
you
the
guys
celebrity part, yeah.
I was like, yeah, you can send me over a check for that. But then GLA contacted me to do, they wanted me to do a video just speaking about anything regarding Lyme in my experience. So obviously I was going to talk about that. And when I sent them the video, they uploaded it, but I felt like they were kind of hesitant to upload it. And I mean, I was pretty direct, like in the video. I don't think there was any need to sugarcoat anything. But when they uploaded it, it was, I don't even remember. It was so many, there were so many comments. I just tried not to, and now I try not to just even go back and read them because like, what's the point, right? But
I remember.
let me like tagging me. Friends were like tagging me.
I know. Let me I'm going to ask one of the same question that Jesse asked for our listeners in terms of the content of the video. I mean, I know what the video said, but if you want to tell people what it said, it was because it wasn't from in my mind, it wasn't inflammatory or accusatory, or anything. It was
actual. I was
and
reading like medical facts about being Black when you go to the doctor, like how much longer it takes for us to get any type of diagnosis. I wasn't even talking about Lyme, I was just talking in general, like how high the mortality rate is for Black women just to have a baby. Like literally just for us to like exist in general is just more dangerous. I'm like, what a lot of people, I said, what a lot of people aren't understanding is for us to exist is already exhausting. So to have to exist with like a chronic illness that people don't even really think is a real thing is like just another added layer on top of it. I felt like I was
just saying, good point.
Like I wasn't blaming anyone on anything. And I feel like that's what happens a lot when I talk about race in this community. People think I'm pointing at them. But what I always say is like, if it makes you uncomfortable, then that's probably something you have to sit with, because I like wasn't talking. If it like, why does it bother you? It shouldn't bother you because I'm just stating a general fact. Like the numbers are there. It's not a secret. So, and then
support that.
Right. I'm like, and then, right. I always say the crazy thing is that people are like, what happens is when I tell you the minute I say Black, it's just like everything just like blows up. And I'm like, guys, I mean, that's what I am. Like, you can say Black, it's not a bad word. And then when that happened, they pulled the video and it just got messy. And it was like, guys, you could have just disabled comments, or you could have actually said like, this is the truth. This is what happens. And I mean, you can look it up if you don't believe her, but no one was putting the finger at anybody. Like I'm never making a generalization about a whole group of people. Like, and I feel like that's what they think. But then the funny part is that when I tell people I'm biracial, then all of a sudden their tone changes. So I'm like, well, you see,
I saw that,
right? I'm like,
I saw that in your comments.
I said, do you guys not? I said that whole fact that you just gave me more empathy because I told you I'm biracial, that's a problem. It's a huge problem. Like, why did I have to have a white parent for you to treat me more human? I'm like, so I should be the one that's upset and not having to educate you. Like, that's not my job to educate people. And I always tell people, I'm not a professor. Like, I'm not here to educate you on like race in the United States or in the world. Like, that's a whole topic that I'm not gonna get into.
I believe the word you used was exhausting.
Right. Like I'm already tired.
Right.
I'm tired just walking down the street. Like I can't do all this too.
She's got Lyme, people. Yeah.
Before this, I just woke up from a nap.
Nap sounds great.
We are very pro nap here at Generation Lyme.
Yes.
Yeah. I have nap envy personally. That comment section was, I mean, watching that, like texting with you and watching that in real time was, well, it was a rough one because it was so fast. It got heated just so quickly, polarized really fast, and not like, I don't even want to use that word because that word comes with with like baggage, because people hear polarized and we already think we know it means something in the US and all of that, but really just people came in and they fought. They went into a corner and they fought, and people came in and attacked you. They said racist stuff, and then people came in to defend you, and they fought. And people fought back.
I always say, these people are not ready for my friends at all.
No.
So it was like, also I'm like, these people were not ready for my white friends at all. Like they were not.
No, that was interesting.
Like, wait a minute. They were like,
it was good to see that support. Hey, I mean, on the topic of support, it was nice to see. It was nice to have people come in and like people come in and say things at different angles. Like we all tried to, people talk you up, like we talk you up, we talk up your work. She's made a movie. Your labs are normal. See the movie. It's brilliant. She's a great advocate. Her point is valid. Or if you don't like it, just go somewhere else. Don't make a comment. But people just started attacking each other, and that was really what derailed the whole thing. And so then I guess the question is, obviously the people who are immediately going to fight, we're going to fight. They weren't going to be supportive right then. Right. But the question was, how could an organization, and it's not to attack one organization over another. This is an example of a situation where you didn't have the support that you needed, right? That's what you're describing.
Yeah, pretty much.
How could they have done better? And how can organizations learn from that? For all of us in the future.
I mean, honestly, I feel like when they asked me to do that, like they already knew what direction it was going to take. Because I'm like, guys, like you've been following me for a while, guys. I know you know what I talk about. And I felt like they were like, well, she needs to say it because it has to come from her. And then when that happened, I was like, you guys are supposed to be the ones to educate these people. Like, this is your platform. It's a huge platform, and it will help a lot if you were the ones to do this. But they got all scared, and they're like, oh, no, wait, let's just pull it off and forget, like, pretend like this didn't happen. And then I got
Do you
even
think
more
it was because of, do you think it was because of conflict, just period?
Yeah, they didn't. I always say, I think they just didn't want to like stir the pot. They were like, oh, we can't do this. Like,
but how can anybody move forward without kind of getting through some of that difficult space, like some of those difficult conversations?
I'm like, things aren't going to change if you don't have these conversations. I'm like, sometimes you got to just make people a little uncomfortable. It's all right. They'll be fine.
Right. So that like the moral of the story, be prepared, protect the people that you post, especially if you know that there's going to be a hotter, like a more heated comment section. Moderate your comments,
right?
Or turn them off, but like, it's going to stand by it.
And then they posted an apology after I asked them, like, please, let's not discuss this anymore. And they disabled the comments on the apology. I was like,
that might just be like technology and people that are not young, maybe. I don't know. It's insane. I don't know.
It might just be a lag in learning.
Yeah.
That's what
I just want to say, like, I have never had to deal with any of that, obviously. And I can't even imagine dealing with it while sick. And the fact that you like continue to be an advocate and you're hosting meetups for us, and you're still, the fact that you didn't just like give everyone the middle finger and like go do your own thing is like really a testament to you, because we get like every once in a while we get an obnoxious comment on something on our account, but never in the level that you're describing. Never. And if that was happening to me, I'd be out. I would just be out. So I appreciate how much you care and how much energy that you've put into this, because you are also helping a lot of people.
Thanks.
And,
yeah,
I had like shared something
like on my stories once, like it wasn't about Lyme or anything, just something like racist. And someone from the community was like, oh my God, that's terrible. Like, I can't even believe that stuff still happens. And I told her, I said, wow, I didn't even have a reaction to that video. Like, it's just life, like it's regular life. And she was like, girl, the fact that you're numb to that is not okay.
Yeah.
Like, that means that you just experience so much of it that it doesn't really affect you. I mean, it affects me, but it's like, I'm not super emotional or anything about it. I'm just like, okay, well, that happens. Next thing to scroll on the timeline. Like, but yeah.
I guess a goal as a community to support you or anybody who's receiving that kind of stuff is not to have you crying every day, you know, to feel more with it, but to but to make it not happen and to make other people, we could share that burden some to the point where everybody realizes none of this is okay. Let's not do it. Let's not have it. Don't send it. People are going to see it. You know, it's going to a human being. It's wrong. All that good stuff. It's she and I think Rhisa's not even saying the half of the kind of stuff that she gets. A lot of it, especially
nice.
on a lot of stuff that she on Facebook too, specifically.
Well,
there's a lot of
boomers, honestly.
I mean, I think we have the Spider-Man problem a little bit. I'm making some nerdy references today, but it's just a normal day. And
what's the Spider-Man problem?
With great power comes great responsibility. And so she has like a very strong voice. Maybe no longer the only face that people have seen, but there's a power to you, and you're a person who people trust. Whether they're going to fight you or not is another story, but you put yourself out front, and so people are drawn to that and come to you, and they expect you for whatever reason to be able to take their crap. And it does not make it okay, but it's this burden of this unique position that you are in. And it's different for an individual even than it is for a group, like a community or an organization at all, because the organization has a team that can kind of work through some of this together and send it off to somebody else on the team if they're having, a rough day or whatever. So that's a benefit to work for all of us working together. But in this situation, people are just coming at you, and responsibility should exist on your part. I just think that this is a thing that is happening, that people are almost seeing you as a figure,
right?
And not a person.
Yeah.
And obviously that needs to stop, like compliment, but stop.
Yeah. No, yeah, for sure.
Well, we are so sorry that has happened to you, but we so appreciate everything that you're doing. We're going to have to wrap it up here, but very briefly, I just want to go around before we leave. And our last question is, how can we better show up in all of these areas of support, or how can people better show up for us? And so what I want to do is just go around the group and have everyone give like a quick answer to this question before we wrap up. So Brooke, I'm going to have you go first. How can we better show up in all of these areas, or how can people better show up for us?
Yeah. Well, I've talked about listening, so I think that's part of the answer. And then I think part of the answer, and something we try so hard to do at Generation Lyme, is to support other people who want to make a difference in the Lyme community. And this applies to all four of us. And I think relates to what you were saying, Rhisa. As you know, behind the scenes, we talk a lot about how we are three of your biggest fans and supporters, and we're honored that you're a part of this community. And just like we would want to support anyone else at Gen Lyme, we want to support you in doing what you would like to do to help other Lyme patients. So on behalf of all of us, thank you for spending time with us and sharing your authentic stories and experiences, and letting us be your friends and supporters.
Oh, thanks.
Rhisa, I'm gonna go to you next. How can we better show up in these areas, or how can people better show up for us?
How can we better show up? Phew, I don't even know. I feel like we show up a lot already.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. How can people better show up
For
the
us,
Lyme community?
honestly, like to keep it simple, believe us. Literally.
Yeah.
Good one.
Like we can't all be making this up, right?
I have said that sentence out loud so many times in the
There's
last
no
10
way.
years.
Like
Yeah.
There's
it's
no way we're
phenomenal.
all lying. Yeah. That's a great
But
answer.
yeah, I mean that's pretty much all.
That's a great answer. People listening to the podcast just went, yes, right? Jennifer, how can we better show up for people, or how can people show up for us?
I've definitely made the joke that like we all called each other before, all hundreds of thousands of millions of us had a
Millions.
phone call. I'm like, no, but recorded hundreds of thousands, but actual millions called each other. We're like, so we're gonna lie about this. And yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, I would echo what Brooke and Rhisa have said. I think that how we can show up better for others might actually include how we show up better for ourselves. And that may be through honesty and setting expectations. And I know that's really hard. And I had a really hard time with that for the longest time. But if we can't do something, or if we may have to be unreliable, even just saying that or acknowledging that to lift the burden on you and the expectation that others may have can actually relieve a lot of stress and not make other people see you as, disappointing. And then whatever you do have to give may feel more supportive to others. So that's one. And then how others can show up for us, I think is through belief and listening. And then in any of the ways of support that we've talked about, whatever they have to give or want to give, there are lots of things that we need in the Lyme community and as Lyme patients, different types of support that we could all benefit from. And then that can be a personal choice. But the first step is to really listen and believe the patients.
I think one thing that I was thinking when I first read this question is, I think some Lyme patients need to do a better job of asking for the things that they need so they can get the support that they need. Because I think so often we don't want to take up space. We don't want to burden somebody. We don't want to be annoying. We think we have to suffer by ourselves. And it comes up in meetups all the time where people just need sometimes people in your life want to help you. But if you don't ask for what you need, they're not going to know what you need. So I think taking care of yourself and asking for things that you need can be really, really helpful as a way to get better support from the people in your life. We could talk about this all day.
Yeah, that was like, let me not.
Such a good one.
But we're gonna wrap it up here. On behalf of Generation Lyme, my name is Jesse Ruben. I want to thank my fellow board members, Brooke Stoddard and Jennifer Hoffmann, and also shout out to Haley, who is also on the board but not with us today because she is busy being a smart genius person. And also thank you to she's at school. She's got tests.
I know. I love that.
And also Rhisa, thank you so much for being here and for being a part of our community and for hosting meetups and making your film. And you're just awesome, and we so appreciate you. If you are
let me not talk anymore.
If you like this conversation, please listen to our other podcast episodes, rate and review us on Spotify, come to a meetup. You can find all of that information at genlyme.org, genlyme.org. We have all of our meetups on there and a bunch of other helpful information. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you very soon. Have a good one. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.